3, 2. Hello, everybody in Radio Land. It's Tom Trento once again. In Radio Land, WNN 1470. Good to be vertical on this day in South Florida. 17 April, Wednesday. Did you get your taxes in? If not, you're in trouble. And you want to pay your taxes so that we can pay the Afghan policeman $260 per month to kill Americans. Yeah, you want to get your taxes paid. Hi, CJ.
Hi, Tom.
How are you?
Well,
did you do your taxes yet?
yes.
Yeah, not me.
But you got an extension.
Yeah, I got extensions.
Yeah.
Extending everything. This just went off in my ears, but that doesn't matter. Probably high. TrentoVision.tv.
And today is the 17th, correct?
Yes, 17th. See, we got that big number right there.
It says on TrentoVision, it says Wednesday, April 16th. So somebody needs to fix
417.
that. What does this say?
Oh, why is that like that? Is that today's show?
Yeah.
What is the date? It's the 17th.
It's the 17th.
I
It
know
says
it's the 17th.
Wednesday, the 16th.
I lied.
Oh, did you do that? It doesn't do it automatically?
I lied.
Uh-oh.
Liars lie.
Lying, liar.
Lying, liar, liar.
Well, the thousands of people who are listening to us right now don't
Yes.
have to be listening to us.
They don't know
talk
what
about
day
this
it is.
kind of-
They're
yeah,
turning
Well, it is
around
Wednesday.
because
It is
Uh-oh.
Wednesday. It is Wednesday.
they thought they had to catch their plane on the
Is it
17th.
Wednesday? Is it Wednesday?
It
It's
is
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay. Well,
But they thought they had to get their plane on the 17th, and it's the 16th, and they're turning around and going back. But stay tuned to our show, because in a little bit we're going to bring on the inimitable Diana West. Diana is an amazing, amazing woman, academic, writer, culturist, worldviewist, analyst, national security expert. She's got a whole host of things she can do, and she writes what's the stuff called? Novels. Writes that kind of stuff too. Nonfiction, fiction. She writes fiction.
Yes.
Couldn't think of that for a minute. But I can't hear you. You're not coming through. Can't hear you.
I said she writes them their books.
She writes them their books, yes. She is one of the authors of Sharia, The Threat to America, and one of the 19 authors. And the 19 authors have a daily colloquy or battle, as the case may be, regarding whatever's in the news cycle. And Diana is always throwing in her 2 cents, which are usually about 200 cents, and a little bit of fire.
And a lot of common sense.
So, yes. So we're going to bring her on, and we're going to try to do this on a weekly basis to get her her view of the world.
That's going to be fabulous.
That'll be very, very good. And before we do that, for those of you just tuning into the show from wherever you may be on the face of the earth, the reason why I say that we are not just a radio show. No,
We're so much more.
we would not settle for that. Mike, you can go to 2 of us. Yeah, let them see CJ. We're not just a radio show.
Okay, stop watching television.
Yeah, I'm watching.
and Pay
I'm
attention
watching.
to the
television.
audience.
I'm watching that over there.
If
I'm
anything
looking.
happens, we'll know. Don't
Tell us if
worry.
something happens.
Yeah.
The TV isn't on there. Well, today we found out that the suspects were arrested and then were unarrested. And they weren't suspects, and they're people of interest, but they're not people of interest. So,
And they're no longer interesting to us.
Yeah.
And they're not interesting people.
And there's nothing here to see, so go home,
Move on,
everybody.
move on.
yeah, it's
The
bizarre.
longer they go on with this, Tom, the longer they take, the more and more suspicious I get, because they do not want to say this guy is a Muslim. They really, really don't.
The guy that is the
Whoever the bomber
person
is.
of interest
The
or
person,
whatever.
right.
Well, tomorrow, what we're going to do tomorrow, we'll talk about some of this with Diana in a little bit.
Yeah.
But we have so much to talk with her about tomorrow. Whereas we were going to do a couple of shows on the project, I think we're gonna do maybe one show to introduce the project, or maybe one show on the SPLC that we're going to be doing next week, which we'll tell you about. But we're going to come back to this tomorrow because some things are going to break overnight. And there is a train of thought because it's the month of April, and that is an anti-government month over the past 10 years in America. I think necessarily from a professional point of view, we got to lay out for you the anti-American activities that have taken place in the month of April, why it's so critical. It goes back to April of 1993.
I think you have to distinguish between anti-government and anti-American.
Well, yeah, anti-government.
Yeah, I don't think you should say
No,
anti-American.
they're not. Well, yeah, they're not really anti-American. But you don't do that stuff if you're an American. You follow the rule of law. But their main thrust is anti-government. That's their main thrust. And back in April 1993, we had a little Waco incident.
Happy with what?
And I'm not getting any. Is somebody checking this? Because I don't hear anything again. I hate doing that. But anyway, we'll lay out tomorrow why April has become an anti-government month. And one of the peculiarities, one of the hallmarks of Al-Qaeda blowing people up is actually blowing people up. That's what they want to do. They want to blow people up. Mike, what are you doing? I'm looking at him biting your nails.
Stop it. Come on, we're working here.
We're working.
We're working. We're live. It's not tape.
What is he doing? One of the hallmarks of Al-Qaeda is actually blowing people up. The anti-government people don't blow people up.
Not usually.
Not usually. They blow buildings up.
Yeah.
They blow, symbolic things. Tim McVeigh's an exception. He wanted to kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's not typically how they operate. But we'll lay out 2 or 3 of the lines of evidence that could point to an American, a real citizen born here, and who has taken up arms against the government. We'll introduce that as a topic, though none of us think that's
Except
the case.
that the government wasn't actually a target in this
No,
case.
it was,
It's not like they blew up the IRS offices or something like that. They blew up civilians at a race.
To cover all the bases, we'll lay out some of the thinking because it is a bizarre month.
Yeah, and the other thing about April
Month
is
of
that
April.
it leads into the month of May, which starts off on May 1st with May Day, International Day of Communism.
Yeah. Communism, that's a good system.
We need to get a really, Mike, from now until the beginning of May to find a really, really good audio copy of the Internationale.
Okay.
All right, and then we'll go around the world and we'll show you how people celebrate
I know
May
what we
Day.
can do. I know what we can do. We can premiere. I got to go find it. The video that Mike and I shot at the Midwestern Conference Communism conference on Marxism.
That's right.
Halloween 2011. We went undercover, Mike, myself, and somebody else. And we shot a lot of undercover video of an all-day Marxist conference.
Mm-hmm.
We could pull some of that out. That'd be fun on May Day.
Yeah, and then we can show
write that
La Raza demonstrating in the streets all over the country.
May 1st. But you know what we have next week?
Oh, look at this headline. U.S. Muslims fear backlash if Islamists behind Boston bombings. Yeah, because that happens so much.
FBI's postponed their press conference.
Yep.
Again.
Yeah, well...
I don't blame them for not wanting to tell us anything. Why should
no,
they?
they really shouldn't.
They shouldn't be telling us anything.
There's two
They
two
shouldn't
trains
be
of
telling
thought.
us anything because, first of all, if they already have everybody in custody who they want to have, then they need a free shot at them for a little while.
Not with Holder. They get immediate. They get lawyered up immediately.
Okay, but no. They need time to widen the net
Mm-hmm.
and check out their networks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
so you have to be relatively quiet about that. And
The
if they don't have
the
them,
old
why
FBI.
why spook them into thinking we're coming to get you?
I know.
We're 30 seconds away from your door.
I know.
And then you spook them. But on the other hand, if you think you know who they are and you spook them, then you can watch who runs and where they run to, and then snatch them up.
Yeah, you're so old school FBI, CJ. It isn't funny. The old school FBI, and we have many associates and friends who spent a lot of time there, used to do that kind of cunning planning to outwit and to defeat the enemy. They saw these people as enemies.
Yeah.
The new FBI, run by Eric Holder, he's the head of the DOJ, Department of Justice. He's the boss of Robert Mueller, who's the head of the FBI. And Holder's accountable to President Obama. And they view all of this as, they view terrorism as a criminal offense, not as a terrorist or military issue. They're not enemies of the state, they're criminals. Oh, that's getting better. So, but if you take a step back, the FBI could be telling us factual information that they want out in the public arena for a given purpose. They could be giving us disinformation where they want certain individuals to think they're going left when in fact they're going right. Mm-hmm. Or they can make a request of people like they did yesterday and today saying, give us all your photos. And people are going through all their stuff and sending it. And you know how many tens of thousands of pictures that the analysts have to go through and compare them somehow?
Plus all the videos, plus all the closed circuit cameras from the city, from the retail stores, from all the international media who were there to cover the end of the race.
The blessing of having all these cameras, which is why the perpetrator did this, so it'll be a global issue, is a curse in terms of all the amount of work. But if you can get through all the work, then it's going to be a blessing in terms of finding the perpetrator.
Right. That's why I think people shouldn't be overly eager and expecting this to be wrapped up in 72 hours. We're going to know everything.
When was the last time you went to a movie?
We're going to know everything there is to know about what happened with the Boston bombings.
CJ, when was the last time you went to a movie?
When's the last time I went to a movie? What was that movie you took me to in the summer, you guys?
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, how 2016. I think that was the last
long was
one I
that
saw.
movie? How long was
my
that movie?
audio just went wow
yeah,
loud.
now it's going on. Yeah. How long was that movie?
It seemed really long to me.
Yeah, but how long was it?
I don't know. It was about an hour and a half, maybe.
Okay, say 2 hours.
Yeah, with commercials and everything.
When people go to a movie, they want to see the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Right.
2 hours. They want to see whatever it was completely wrapped up.
Uh-huh.
And then they get on to the next thing in their life.
Okay.
Most people view reality like a movie, particularly when it's so surreal. I hate that word, but it actually works here. When it's so surreal, like a bombing in Boston, they go, okay, 2 hours, we got to know who the bad guy is. What's his name? Jack Baker? Was it Jack
Bauer.
Jack Bauer. Jack Bauer's got to smack him around hanging upside down and get all the information out of him. And then we've got to prosecute him.
I think you have to explain that. Oh, 24?
24, yeah.
Okay.
And execute him. And then we get on to the next thing. So that's how Americans have been trained and geared to have a resolution to these melodramatic events in 2 hours. And everybody's like, but that's not how the investigative processes work. But let's find out from Diana. Do we have her? Are we going to get her yet?
Really, if you think about it, how quickly is this going to get wrapped up anyway? How long's Allahu Akbar Fort Hood guy been waiting to come?
November 2009, till almost 4 years. 4 years. No big deal. Gitmo guys have been there 10 years, some of them.
Yeah.
And now they're on a hunger strike, and they're getting their prayer rugs, and
Yeah.
Hey, it's a new America.
Yeah.
I think we're the only country in the world that provides all these sort of rights to people that are trying to kill us. People that are trying to kill us. But when they said in the Brotherhood's documents, we will destroy them by their own hands with their own laws, they ain't too far off on that, the way things are going.
Yeah.
There's still a few of us that'll fight, and fight pretty hard. So speaking about fighting, is that front door back there locked?
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking about fighting, the bunker through the elevator, the secret elevator. We're going to bring Diana West on in a second.
She's going to be on with the fabulous Bunker Boys.
But let me tell everybody what we have planned for them next week. Special next week.
Yes,
Have you
tell
ever heard of the Southern Poverty Law Center?
Yes.
You have? That was rhetorical to the audience.
Oh, okay.
But it's okay.
I
You
thought
can
it was
answer
another quiz.
Okay. All right, wise guy. Who is or what is the Southern Poverty?
No. I just know. You
Law
go ahead.
Center.
I'm not going to interfere.
Southern
I'm not
Poverty.
going to interfere with your.
Oh no, you can.
No.
Yes.
You go ahead.
The Southern Poverty Law Center is.
It's a scam.
It is. It really is a scam. The Southern Poverty SC Law A Center scam.
Yeah.
It is a huge scam. It is an organization that's about 40 years old. Started about 40 years ago. That's why it's 40 years old. To fight the Ku Klux Klan, and they actually did a pretty good job with that early on. And then they saw that people would actually give them money to fight hate groups, real life hate groups, and they said,
Well, no, they were also supposed to represent people who were minorities who wouldn't get fair treatment in court.
Civil rights.
They wouldn't have proper representation. So they were supposed to really be fighting for civil rights for people.
They did some of that early on.
They did enough of that in the beginning so that their name had credibility, but then as soon as that happened, then the real scam started.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a matter of your bank account. When you see your bank account growing like crazy because you're fighting the Ku Klux Klan and you need money to continue the battle, or you're fighting the Aryan Nation, or you're fighting all these people, and the federal government is saying, oh, you're doing a great job, and people are sending you money, all you have to conclude is, hey, if we fight hate groups, we make money. Well, there's only like 5 hate groups out there. So our revenue stream is limited. We need a new business model. What was their business model?
What was their business model?
Invent hate groups.
Invent hate groups.
All we got to do is just keep identifying groups as haters and then tell people, oh, another hate group jumped up, and now we need more money to fight them.
Right.
And that's what they've done for 40 years.
Yeah.
And guess how much?
And I guess Code Pink isn't on there, but I bet you are.
And Muslim groups. I mean, Muslim hate groups aren't even on there.
Al-Qaeda's not on
Yeah,
there.
no, it's insane.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we are. Don't say you. You are part of the United West. You are a hater. You are a hating hater. So.
But I'm so cute about it.
But you know what? Now we're gonna. Now we're going to start kicking back. Next week we're going to launch an investigative expose into the Southern Poverty Law Center. We're going to tell you everything you need to know all about them. We're going to tell you about their founders, their directors, sleazebags that they are. Mm-hmm. We're going to tell you about their grimy, slimy work they do. And we're going to tell you about their slush fund of $250 million cash on hand that they have, and how they're gunning for Christian organizations, Jewish organizations, American organizations, to identify them as hate groups, raise more money. That's
what they're doing is they're defrauding hundreds of thousands of donors.
Yep. And you know, if people are stupid enough,
they're not spending the money to do what they say they're going to do.
And if people are stupid enough to write these people checks, that's America. You want to be that stupid? But what they've done is they've legitimized, they being the Southern Poverty Law Center, has legitimized itself as a accurate barometer of hate and criminality in the United States, to such a degree that the Department of Justice now engages their services. This is what's beyond the pale. So that's an issue that we're going to take exception with and expose
Absolutely.
in a magnificent way. And we may even place a call or two to our friends at the Southern Poverty Law Center and have them visited by TrentoVision. How about that?
I think that would be swell.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Well, we have Diana on audio.
Oh,
Audio
okay.
only?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we trying to get video?
Yeah, we're trying to get
Okay.
video here.
We're
Okay.
working
Keep us
on,
posted.
Yep.
This is Diana's inaugural, her maiden voyage. Her maiden Skype voyage.
Her video voyage.
She's virginal voyage on Skype. I don't think she's been a Skyper before, so this could be a new experience for her.
Oh, I can hear her.
I hear her.
Go ahead.
Can you see me? I'm.
I'll get it.
No, we're going to see you in a minute, but we can hear you very well.
This is your virginal voyage on Skype,
It
huh?
is.
Virginal video voyage.
Are you there, Diana?
Yes.
Yes.
She's there.
you're
Is
very-
she hearing me
She's
through
like,
the?
yes.
She's hearing you.
Yes,
she-
I hear you. Ask me something.
Is she hearing me through the system or?
Can
through
you
that
see
little guy?
me?
She's hearing you.
No, we
We're going to
can't.
see you in a minute.
I see me.
Unplug your thing and plug. You're not hearing yourself. Huh?
I'm okay.
Can you hear her?
Yeah, I hear her perfectly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I hear her perfectly.
All right.
Hi, Diana.
Hi. How
Let-
are you, Tom?
Good, I hear you perfectly. I mean,
Yeah,
the
it's
audio
really
is perfect.
good.
Miraculous.
We're playing. Yeah, it is. Is this your maiden voyage on Skype?
Well, it is on TrentoVision for
Okay,
sure,
okay,
and
good,
it's
good,
my
good.
My first voyage with this new camera. So I hope it
Aha.
works.
Yes.
Well,
Now,
we-
we just want to, before we broadcast you to the free world,
Yes.
we want to make sure that there's nothing in your background that is because the camera takes a wide swath of what's behind you. So make sure that everything is proprietary. And Mark will take a look at it before we put it up anyway.
Okay. I have to take my clotheslines down.
And yes,
To the elevator, the secret elevator.
We're going to bring Diana West on in a second.
She's going to be on with the fabulous bunker.
Oh, we're hearing the replay.
I'm hearing the back.
Next week.
Hi.
Special.
Hang on, Diana.
Special
The
next week.
replay is
Have
coming
you
in.
ever
Tell us.
heard?
We've got to stop that. That happens once in a while.
No?
But while we're sorting this out, folks, all we need is some money at TrentoVision to fix all our little technical issues. And you can go to TrentoVision.tv or theunitedwest.org and donate securely. It all works fine. All right, let's get started with Diana, and we'll
Yes.
do audio. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Oh,
How you doing?
Hi.
You look
Howdy,
great.
Yes, you do. What's the weather like where you are?
Gorgeous.
Oh, is it?
Florida like.
Oh, no, that's nice. That's
At least Florida in the winter like.
Florida in the winter. Well, you know what? Florida in the winter is really a beautiful time of the year. But we just started to change where it's hot, and the air conditioning has to be on all the time, and everybody's sweating and running around, and
The
but we love
season's
it.
over.
yeah, I think so. But
Yes.
it's coming quickly, and now we wait for the hurricane. See how nice it is living down here. Crazy. But anyway, a lot of stuff since we last spent some
Yes.
time with you. And let's start out right with this Boston situation. Have you ever spent time in Boston formally?
I formally?
Yeah.
No, not formally, but I have visited Boston. I have docked at Boston Harbor, in fact, and walked around and enjoyed the city. It's gorgeous. And of course, it is near and dear to our hearts. It's a huge part of our heritage.
Yeah.
I know it has been I mean, the thing about this event and all of these horrible attacks, these atrocities, is that they shatter our civilizational fabric. And that is something that never is mended. It is never mended. It is always part of us. And it is one of the reasons why we should continue to throb with rage on these occasions. And what I notice so often, and we've unfortunately been through these sorts of events many times, is there is this desire to look on the bright side and to applaud the fabulous healthcare and first responders, and yes, they should be applauded, and yet there is an undue emphasis, I think, on this as the reaction that takes us forward instead of this desire to end this kind of assault on our cities and civilians.
Yeah, you started with an interesting phrase, the lack of, yeah, the civilizational fabric.
Yes.
Monday the 15th was Patriot Day, and I didn't know that much about Patriot Day
I'd never
because
heard of it, actually.
yeah, I mean, I live in Florida. I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
But the battles of Lexington and Concord
Sure.
started, and it's a big holiday for these guys. And that really is a part of the civilizational fabric. But I don't know, Diana, we are finding here at TrentoVision, the United West, that the concern about a fabric that somehow knits together a particular civilization,
It's not out there.
no, it's secondary to fill in the blank.
Yeah,
you know?
it's secondary to everything, I think. And this is something I talked a little bit about yesterday. We did. I don't know, Diana, if you saw the press conferences with the government officials and with Obama and the mayor of Boston and the governor of Massachusetts. The lack of passion that these people exhibited was just astonishing to me.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. Because
I've seen more concern and more passion for like people who lost their homes in a tornado than for a terrorist attack in one of our cities, and it's just shocking to me the banal reaction. And I have not really, anywhere that I've been, a coffee shop, a restaurant, a grocery store, anywhere that I've been in the last several days, I have not heard anybody talking about this.
Right. Well, this
Anyway,
is the
it's like it
terrible
didn't
thing.
happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. It's on the news screens everywhere, and nobody's talking. What's going
I
on?
think that that's because we've become conditioned to accept this as the new normal. And the reaction becomes by the law enforcement and government authorities, more cameras, more dogs, more security, more checkpoints. This notion that safety is something we can carve out of a nation in chaos is something that is not what you want to hear from your law enforcement. It certainly, I bet if we looked back at press conferences back after 9/11 with Rudy Giuliani,
Right.
talking to
What
us,
a contrast.
you would have a very different, the contrast would be extreme. And this is what happens. This is what I remember being so fearful of when after 9/11 we started the airport check-ins and you couldn't stand up as you approached Washington or New York, that kind of thing in the plane. And people become so docile and they become so acceptant of this as something to deal with, build into your schedule.
Right.
And this is, I guess it's probably part of some kind of human survival impulse, and yet it is so damaging to the spirit of the nation. And that is what I think you're not hearing, rather, expressed. There is no spirit here. And I think we've been cowed by this whole last decade to get to where we are, where we sort of accept this as a threat that we will live with and do better next time by having more ambulances on hand and more fabulous healthcare professionals and so on. And it's all going the wrong way.
Right. It's not really about America at all.
No.
It's not about Americanism at all. Our national identity, the culture that binds us together, is absent from this discussion. And this is just an inconvenience to us.
Well, it becomes that, and then the other strange thing I picked up from both the president's remarks and also at that press conference is this idea that we will find out why terrorists did this.
Right. Like, who cares?
Who cares?
Does that mean we're supposed to do something different because somebody had a grievance?
Well, it's also the idea that there is any sort of
legitimate
reason,
why.
Right. That could possibly be expressed in such a way that we would take seriously.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
So
it's like if the police are interviewing, a woman or a child who's been battered.
Yeah.
They'll say, "Well, what did you do?
Did you do
that made him beat you?"
Yeah. Exactly.
Does it matter what I did?
Right. Right. Perfect analogy. Exactly. Yeah. And then, of course, watching today, this carnival over whether a suspect has been arrested, whether the left will get its dream and have it be a white, non-Islamic suspect. I mean, this has been something extraordinary, which I confess to having become caught up in. I've been watching the press conferences and the breaking news reports and trying to follow the story myself. But it's, again, the wrong emphasis. I mean, is this really the war we're having over whether we get the suspect we want? I mean, it's utterly,
Right.
it's madness.
Right. In fact, I was reading your blog earlier today, and you were talking about CNN's John King. Forgive me.
Yes.
They say it's a dark-skinned male. Tell us a little bit about that.
This was one of the great moments. I mean, you know, in this period of crisis, but this was one of the great, let's say, illustrative moments
Yes.
of where the press, where the mainstream media really is. John King of CNN broke the notion, since pulled back, that there had been an arrest, that authorities had made an arrest of a suspect in the Boston massacre. And he was pained to report
Yeah.
that his sources told him that it was a dark-skinned male. And
Yeah.
and he expressed this pain very clearly. He emoted this in his broadcast. And the notion that this self-consciousness, the, you know, what we call political correctness,
Yes.
the bind he found himself in simply in reporting a fact, dark-skinned male. I mean, what does that mean anyway? But I mean, the notion that you might be
Exactly.
introducing race or nationality or ethnicity into the arrest of a suspect is the most damning condemnation of a really craven media, just so afraid of facts,
Yeah.
regardless of what they are. And indeed, I have to say, I mean, I know that law enforcement very often, they're about to make an arrest or they're thinking they want you to be on the lookout for someone. They are supposed to tell you a description. And what
Exactly.
we have been hearing is that authorities still do have a very definite suspect in mind based on a face seen in videotape at Lord and Taylor, of all places, and elsewhere, and they're not giving us a description. And I don't know if that's because of the sensitivity of the investigation, or if that story is indeed going to stand, that they have the face in mind. But in normal circumstances, we would be given a description of a suspect. Now, this made me think back to what the DC sniper, which for quite a long time up here in DC,
Yeah.
we were not given a description of, what was his name? John
Malvo,
Allen
John Malvo.
John
yeah.
Lee Malvo.
Malvo was the young one, and John Allen Muhammad was the
Yeah.
older
Yeah.
man. And
We didn't know they were we didn't know they were Muslims. I mean, nobody knew
we
that
didn't-
for a
well,
long
at
time.
that point,
You knew they were
didn't
in a
know,
white
but
van,
in
and
terms
that
of
was
what we were
it.
looking for.
No, they were in
We
a
were
blue
given
a
description.
blue
We're not given a
trunk
physical
of the car.
description for
Yeah,
a very long
exactly.
time.
Yeah, no, that was crazy.
You know,
Look,
But that's something we've seen in the newspapers for going back 20 years. I
sure.
used to read the police blotters all the time, and then
Oh,
all
you're
of
one
a
of them?
sudden,
You read the police
yeah,
blotter?
all of a sudden, descriptions of criminals and suspects of criminality disappeared
Right.
from the police blotters, and you could no longer identify in a news story who the perpetrators actually were. I mean, you could usually guess because you knew what part of town it was in, but
Right.
Well, picking up on a comment you made earlier, Diana,
Yes.
and you saw it on the Team B2. Diana West, folks. Tom Trento here, 34 minutes past 5 o'clock. Tom Trento, CJ, and the Bunker Boys here with Diana West, our good friend. Diana is one of the authors of this book right here, Sharia, the Threat to America, and Death of a Grown-Up. That's your book. And your new book. What's the name of your
My
new book?
American
My new book
Betrayal.
is called American Betrayal, The Secret Assault on Our Nation's Character, and it is coming out on May 28th.
Yeah, I know because I ordered it
We
on
pre-ordered.
Amazon, and they keep saying it's not here yet. It's not here yet.
I know, me too.
So we're looking forward to that. But we have the Team B folks and a few others have a sort of a colloquy every day, or fights, or whatever you want to call it. And one of the very sharp attorneys said, in all his metaphorical battles, he's never really heard the term a dark-skinned Caucasian. A dark-skinned Caucasian. That was one of the
Oh,
appellations
wait,
used.
but he's forgetting George Zimmerman was exactly
Yeah, that's
described
right.
that
A
way,
white
remember?
Hispanic. A white Hispanic.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the new world we're in. It's
The new
sad.
world.
But what we want to do right now with you is kind of travel the globe, go a few different places. Let me ask you, do you like film noir?
Sure.
Okay, because for about the first 10 minutes, you were starring in film noir.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Black and white?
Yes, you were in black and white.
Great.
It was our fault.
Well, it sounds good.
We had a connection that wasn't on. And then now you're in full, bright, living color.
Yes.
It's like in The Wizard of Oz.
You're very yes, exactly. You're very pink now.
That's exactly what happened.
She's a pink skinned.
Can you show us your red
Caucasian.
shoes? Can you click your red heels? Can you do that?
Oh, I'll have to get them on for next
All
time.
right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the story that we got involved with very deeply. Pamela Geller situation in Great Neck, Long Island.
Oh, yes.
We got our hands on some emails, and we said, okay, these need to be published. We published those. It was a conspiracy from some very high-level
Yes.
Muslim leaders and leftists. And you wrote a little bit on that. What were your thoughts on that effort to silence a Jewish woman speaking at a synagogue? You know?
I think that the story is so important to cover and to understand, because here was a situation. I mean, there are many ways of looking at the story. But one of the things that really struck me is, particularly as brought out by those amazing emails that you were able to present to the public, thank you, is the fact that here is a synagogue, the Great Neck Synagogue, men's club, issuing an invitation to an author and blogger of note, Pamela Geller, to come and speak to them on a subject that she is very well versed in and has a lot to say about Sharia, the imposition of Sharia in America. And then you see this conspiracy coalesce against her, against the synagogue, a pressure campaign of extraordinary dimensions from the vice president of the Islamic Center, one Habib Ahmed, who seems to have been the ringleader, and the Interfaith Alliance of Long Island, which seems to involve some a group of churches, Unitarian and so on. You see also the same people and different groups, sort of pieces of overlapping groups. These are alumni of efforts to stop Peter King from having his radicalization in the Islamic community hearings back in 2011. And the thing that really began to really incense me, among the many things, is the fact that here they are, outsiders, talking to a synagogue of note, telling them
Yeah.
who can come and talk to the synagogue. And you just start thinking, who do they think they are? I mean, how does this quote interfaith alliance have the gumption, the chutzpah, to come into a synagogue and say, we don't approve of the speaker that your men's club has decided is interesting enough to invite to come talk on a Sunday? So right on that very basic level, this is so interfering, this policing of what is acceptable, what is considered permissible by outsiders inside a synagogue. So that's the story on one level. Then you get to the whole notion of what are they actually policing? They are policing our investigation, our fact-finding, our discussions of Sharia in America at this synagogue on Long Island. And again, you get to another level of gall and chutzpah and just evil in terms of a man who actually sits on the Nassau County Human Rights Commission, taking it upon himself to block the human rights of an individual, you could even say of the synagogue, and indeed limiting their abilities to think and debate and conduct their own business. So this story is it is very understood, even as it got quite a lot of coverage, particularly in Long Island press and Jewish press. But it's a very important story, and it had a mixed ending. I mean, in the sense that the synagogue caved. They disinvited Pamela Geller, and The mixed part, the better part, was that she picked up a couple of other invitations to speak at other synagogues,
Right.
which is good, and yet still the point is driven home that in Great Neck, New York, kind of one of the leading Jewish communities in America, probably the world. I was doing a little research. I was kind of surprised to learn it's actually 71% Jewish. I mean, it is a very Jewish community, very affluent community, and yet their synagogue, the synagogue there, was able to be dictated to, and that tells us where we are in terms of fear of giving offense, fear of standing up for ourselves, fear of standing up for others. I mean, it's a very bad vibe that this story demonstrates. And so I think this was a real loss, even if Pamela Geller went on to talk elsewhere, and I'm sure she did very well and you know, provoked great debates other places. But this was a bad scene.
It was a problem. CJ has a question for you, but before we do that, at 41 minutes after 5 o'clock, you're on TrentoVision.tv. That's the simulcast on the internet worldwide. And you're listening on WNN 1470, the AM side of your dial, broadcasting out of Boca Raton, going all over South Florida. We're also broadcasting on theunitedwest.org and, of course, at our good friends Tea Party Community. We say hello to Tim Saletti, and the whole crew over there. Tea Party Community has something like 120,000 people now. Diana, we do a lot of work with this group. It's a group that's growing, that's fed up with Facebook because of all the censoring and the limitations, and about 120,000 really true patriot, hardcore Americans. We are broadcast on their site, so they're watching you right now, Tea Party Community. Say hello to the Tea Party Community.
Hello, and I will be at the Villages Tea Party next week.
Oh, really? Down in this one down here in Florida, right?
At the Villages,
Yeah.
Monday night.
Excellent. You're not going to be at the Awakening by any chance, are you, over the weekend?
Not that I know of.
Okay. All right, CJ, you had a question for Diana?
Yeah, a couple of points I wanted to ask you about. First of all, when you were talking about the synagogue, the Interfaith Council having no business interfering in who the speakers were at the synagogue. Quite frankly, if somebody from the Islamic Center of Long Island, if this chief instigator of the emails and the campaign against Pamela Geller had been the scheduled speaker at the synagogue, we would have called the synagogue to alert them about who this man is and what his mosque's agenda is and what the background is of the Muslim Brotherhood and everything else. We would have told them all of that if he had been the speaker or somebody like him. Sure. So I'm not. So would that be considered interference?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, because it's important to understand that there are apples and there are oranges in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sense of an Islamic agenda and somebody trying to advance Sharia,
right?
Is the synagogue out of bounds for having such a person come and speak? Well, I suppose in that case it would be very helpful to enlighten the synagogue and present another side to it.
Right.
Should they be banned? It's up to the synagogue. But
right.
You're right. I mean, pressure campaigns and boycotts are certainly an age-old tradition and can be used with right and might be a righteousness behind them.
Right.
Yes, there are good people to have come to a synagogue and bad people. I think where things went very much astray in the Pamela Geller case, which may be something different from what you're talking about,
mm-hmm.
is they lied about her. They called
absolutely
up, and they actually just they said this in those emails that Tom was able to put out there, that they called up and said it was like having a member of the Nazi party
exactly
come lecture a church.
Exactly.
There is no way in which Pamela Geller can be likened to being a member of the Nazi party
course.
In any realm of
course.
Truth and fact. So maybe that's what the difference here. I have become much more of a free speech absolutist.
Right.
But I think that in the sense of truth and advertising, that does become the break point.
Well, the egregious element was we do this, the United West. We go in and we try to, if Siraj Wahaj is at a university or something, I mean, we try to disrupt all of that stuff, all legally. We're activists, okay? I mean, we have an agenda. We have an advocacy point of view. We have an opposition. That's what we do. The egregious element here was you've got several people that were on the Human Rights Commission of Nassau County. You know, you have interfaith people. You have people that present themselves as
one thing, but
as
they really
sheep,
are another.
you know, as lambs, and they're really wolves.
Yeah.
We present ourselves as wolves, and we come at you as wolves. That's part of the problem,
I think there's one other thing here, and that is as far as this Great Neck Synagogue that canceled the appearance. And I don't think it's just because of political correctness. I think they caved because anytime you have an issue with Muslims or Islam or Islamists or radical Islam, whatever you want to call it,
Islamists.
you guys want to talk about this, everybody will cave, because when you mention Muslim or Islam, there's an implied threat of violence that people won't be able to control themselves, and that we have to protect ourselves from them, and it's too costly, so let's just not get involved and deal with it in the first place.
That was a real element. It certainly was.
So I think it's
all right, well, let's switch gears.
political
I think you're right.
correctness to the threat of violence. We assume these people, we don't hold them to the same standard to be responsible for themselves.
No, we don't. But we're going to switch gears because I'm watching the clock, and you just used a term that we're going to do some work on in the future. We're going to do a special, a half-hour special on the term Islam, Islamism, Islamist, all of that stuff, because there is in our little colloquy on Team B, we've got some of the very refined individuals, revered individuals, who love the word Islamist. And then there's a few of us kind of rogue people. Diana is one of them, and myself, and Andy Boston, and a few others. We don't understand what the term means. Diana, help us out. Let's introduce the Islam versus Islamist or Islamism. Introduce the subject, and we're going to do a special down the road somewhere. But let's just play around with it a little bit now. Hang on. I can't hear her. Hang on, Diana. Mark, can't hear Diana. Something happened? Oh. Okay, wire got pulled out. Go ahead. So the question was, let's discuss this Islam versus Islamist concept.
Well, it's a key concept because until we've mastered it and stop using the word Islamist, I don't think we have a chance of defending ourselves against Islam. I have been writing and talking about this for years now, because at a certain point in my own education about Islam, it did become clear that the problem with Islam was Islamic teachings, was mainstream classical institutions and teachings and goals and dreams, not of any sort of nonsense word of Islamism, but of Islam. And I really don't have a problem with that, except insofar as the impact of those things on liberty. But in terms of talking about it, I have never been one to get hung up on the ists and isms. And actually, in my first book, Death of the Grown-Up, I kind of went through my own education as a columnist, where I finally realized that these little suffixes were actually fig leaves to protect Islam. And yes, I do believe that's the case, and a good way to think about it, because so long as the problem is Islamism, there is no problem with Islam.
Right.
Yeah.
And Islam and Islamism has become, or radical Islam is another one of these confusing terms. Those terms have become ways not to talk about the problem. And I would just like to mention one little anecdote which happened to me. A few years ago, I had the great privilege to introduce Geert Wilders at an event in Los Angeles where he was getting a Freedom Award. And we were sitting together at the table listening to a number of speeches before he was to get up and speak. And every speaker to a man, to a woman, use the phrase radical Islam this, radical Islam that. The problem is radical Islam. And at a certain point, Geert leaned over to me and he said, "Do you believe in radical Islam?"
Right.
Yeah.
And we ended up laughing. I assured him, I was just an Islam type of gal.
Yeah.
It's true, because what you have the leader of Turkey, Erdogan,
Oh, my
taking great
goodness.
exception to the term himself. He says Islam is Islam, and that's it.
I think we should take his word for it.
I think we should, but
If-
we
if-
see
if-
it
go ahead.
clogs our thinking.
Well, yeah. If the three of us went and on a sort of I guess it would be a combined vacation study trip to Al-Azhar in Cairo for a 6-month course, notwithstanding the fact we would never get out, but if we did get in and in our studies there we use the term Islamist instead of Islam, we probably fail. I think we would fail.
Good point.
And-
They do not use the term.
No,
Right.
of course not. So the authoritative doctrines don't use it. I have, but there's an evolutionary process too. When I first got involved on a deeper level in fighting this battle, I've been fighting Islam as a Christian apologist for 35 years, as an ideology that is destructive to human nature. It's not true. All of that on a theological basis.
Yeah.
Once it insinuated itself into the American culture on September 11th in a unique way, now we have a political context to it. Early on, I got involved with the film Radical Islam Obsession, Radical Islam's War Against the West. And it was a good modifier to say, well, there's radical ones and there's nice ones. And then we went through the Islamofascism time. And then
The David Horowitz.
yeah, there's Islamofascism in your mouth. You used to have to make sure there wasn't spit in your mouth, Islamofascism.
The good old days.
I could never spell it either. I always had to kind of divide it and spell check it and put it back together.
Yeah.
So the good old days. Then it was Sharia. Then we got into the Sharia. Now we started to really zero in on doctrine. And now we've grown this little tail at the end of it, ism or ist. I've been making a distinction between a human being who is a Muslim. He's born into a family, and he's considered a Muslim. And he happens to follow an ideology, a belief system called Islam. In that sense, there could be very wonderful people who happen to be Muslims that follow an ideology, but to the degree they follow it consistently, it's to that degree they become an enemy of mine and an enemy of the United States, because the doctrines obviously lead in that way. So even when we critique Islam as a system, that doesn't mean we hate Muslims as individuals, by no means. But that point is always buried by the other side. How do you understand some of the very well-known people? I mean, Andy McCarthy has argued, vehemently for the classification Islamist as being someone committed to political Islam and not regular Islam. What do you make out of that?
Well,
And he's no slouch. Andy's no slouch.
I love and adore
Yeah.
Andy for many, many reasons. He's quite praiseworthy. But in terms of discussing Islam and dealing with it, I think that we always have to deal with the reality. And I think the reality of Islam is what I try to understand and work with. And I don't worry so much about the terminology, about how it plays out there. And I think that, I'm not speaking for Andy, but I have had this discussion with others, that there is this notion that you have to leave space for moderate people who have been raised within Islam, so as not to push them away, not to turn them off.
Right.
And my feeling is actually, it's really not my problem.
Exactly.
It's I believe incumbent on any people who are caught up by birth, by nationality, by affiliation with a noxious creed, whether it be communism, Nazism, Islam, and so on, to distance themselves without help from me. I'm trying to just, where I work and where I think, where I try to analyze, is really Islam's impact on the West. I'm not as interested in it on Muslims. And I do feel that it's not really up to an analyst or a citizen to always ensure that you've left a little lifeline for people. I think that if they truly reject the creed, they truly reject the creed and they wish to distance themselves from it. And I think that every time we say it's Islamism is the problem, I think we are actually encouraging even moderates to remain within Islam.
Doing a disservice
Exactly.
to them. We're doing
Exactly.
a disservice
We're
to
doing
them.
a disservice.
Yeah, sure.
I think we're suppressing them. I think we're not offering truly well-meaning people support, because we are actually saying there's not a problem with Islam. What's your problem?
Right.
And so I think that on every level, honesty, strategy, and so on, we are not helping by adding words that, as you point out, are not even used within Islam. I mean, they're not recognized within Islam. They are deception. They are words to confuse. And my favorite example of this really in action is when Charles Krauthammer was writing a column about the failure of American media to reprint the Muhammad cartoons.
Right.
And he was going back to, he made a very good point that it was fear, which I completely agree with. They were afraid. And then he went back to he was basically saying, people here in the media know what happened to Theo van Gogh when he made a movie about Islamic treatment of
Yes.
women. He got an Islamist manifesto stabbed into his chest.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
And so my question was, and remains, and I've written it many times by now, is what is Islamic about the treatment of women that is not also Islamic about the manifesto that went into Theo van
Exactly.
Gogh's
Good point.
chest?
But
Hey, we
how
have about 1 minute left, and
how
CJ
about,
has
yeah,
a quick
how
question.
about this? I mean, how about the fact that the problem is Islam, and the Islamists are the ones who want to impose Sharia law and compliance on the rest of us. They're the people who are trying to put Sharia over on us. They're the Islamists.
Then everyone's an Islamist.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, any
Because
believing
that's-
Muslim becomes an Islamist, because to be a Muslim in good standing,
Yes.
there is this acceptance
Yes,
of
that
Sharia.
is the point.
Yeah, but
That is the
we shouldn't
point.
be
But we don't have to make that. Yeah.
right. We shouldn't be defining their limitation in their own faith. We should be saying this is Islam. You're not even following Islam. But this is
You're
going to be
following Islam, exactly. You're being a good Muslim, and just go on from there.
and then crank it up. This is going to be a very good special when we do this. But we're the
clock is winding down.
the clock is winding down.
And I have to tell you, your Skyping and your video
Yeah.
and everything is
Yeah.
very perky
It's-
and good.
Yes, it's very
The
good.
sound is good. The picture is good.
And we're getting texts here. People are loving it and
Yeah.
everything. So, all right, but I'm going to have to let you go. Diana West, thank you very, very much for
Thank
being
you. We'll
with
see you
us.
soon.
It's great to
And
be
we'll
with
see you next week for another update on your life and all things West. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, bye-bye. Diana West, everybody.
What a great interview. And she is such a sharp lady.
Yes, and we have just a couple of seconds left. CJ, Tom Trento, the Bunker Boys,
The
saying
fabulous
goodbye.
Bunker Boys, yes.
We will see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Boston Bomber tomorrow. Take
All
care.
right. Thank you.